Good evening, everyone. I am Chris, and I am joined once again with Dale, continuing on through our 100 Years of Wonder, the 100-year anniversary of Disney Animation Studios. Disney, as a company, isn't doing too great right now, but it's nice looking back at some of these older films. We are back in the grand old year of 1948 for this one. For number 10, we've finally hit double digits. It's slow going, but week by week we're getting through them. And today, we're of course talking about Melody Time. You don't need me to hold up the DVD because it's on the goddamn background. But there we go. It's another one of the anthology films. We've got one more anthology film to go after this, and then we're finally back to animated features. You know, when we kick off with Cinderella, and then we're not going to look back after that. So it's going to be absolutely great. This was one that I hadn't seen. So this is I actually didn't know it was a mixture of live action and animation. I thought it was just pure animation. But yeah, it's live action animated musical anthology film. 1948 was released in the May. And we're here to talk about it. So it's another musical one, I guess, carrying on in the same vein as Fantasia and Make Mine Music. We'll be talking about how well we think as a sort of like unofficial trilogy they kind of stack up against each other, where this one's place is around the classics that came out around this time, and more importantly, if we like the damn film or not. You've watched this film twice in preparation. You always do so much more preparation than I do. I tend to watch it like once. I watched this last night. I watched this last night for the first time. So
the thing is, I think with a lot of these as well, the music that draws me in to watch it again, because I think with a lot of Disney films, you can watch them and then you can watch them again and have it in the background, kind of like the soundtrack kind of thing. And it's the same with this. I think the music was really good. There's quite a few standout things in it, but overall, but as standout pieces of music, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of had high hopes for this one because I really enjoyed Melody Time. Not Melody Time, sorry. Make My Music, there's too many M's. Make My Music from a couple of weeks ago. Fun and Fancy Free was a nice break. And then when I knew that this was another music one, having seen Fantasia and Make My Music, I was like, hey, this could be really good. And it's sort of a mixed bag, this one for me, if we're getting into sort of like initial opinions. In terms of memories of this film, I don't have any, because and I was actually reading, it was a long time before this movie was even released on cassette. I think it didn't come out on cassette tape until like 1998 or something like that.
You just say cassette tape. You get it mixed up with the little things that you put in, like to play music.
VHS, you know what I'm talking about. It's a cassette. It was a cassette tape. You know.
It was a big cassette tape, but yeah.
It was a huge cassette tape. And when I was trying to collect all the Disney classics back in the day, a lot of these anthology ones kind of slipped through my collection. I never bought Saludos Amigos. I never bought, what were the other ones? Make My Music, Melody Time. I never had any of those ones because they were really hard to find. And when you did find them, they tended to be quite a lot more expensive than some of the more mainstream ones. So I have no knowledge of this film. One thing I will say, and false fucking advertising, I was really looking forward to seeing Donald Duck as a conductor, and that image is not in this film. Donald Duck is in this film very, very briefly, but you never get that. And yeah, I think that's
that saddened me too.
But yeah,
yeah.
What was?
I was going to say that.
Go on.
That saddened me too. I mean, I like the Donald Duck bit, but as much as I liked him in Three Caballeros, it was cool. But by that point, the movie'd run its course.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, your webcam has frozen again, as it has want to do the last couple of weeks. We can still hear you fine, so you're all good. Your voice is intact. That's going to carry through with the review. But yeah, you've got a very stern look on your face on this freeze frame that I'm looking at right now.
Am I still moving? No.
No. I'll let you know when you are. But
okay.
I mean, I don't know if you want to drop out and drop back in again. Maybe that would work. But I think we tried that last time, and I don't think it worked. So hopefully, it just kind of irons itself out a little bit. We'll see.
How about
now? No, you're still frozen.
Am I still frozen?
Yeah. As I say, I'll let you know when you come back. I'm keeping an eye on the screen anyway. So, Melody Time. I'm actually going to kick off with you. Oh, now we have a dark screen.
We'll come back. Okay. But I'm here. Okay. I'm here in spirit.
You came
and
back.
Voice.
And then, oh, there we go. It's working. Okay, brilliant.
I'm here in soul.
It's stuttering quite a lot, so it's probably going to freeze again. And in fact, there it goes right there. But I'm going to start with you. Your initial opinions on watching this movie for the first time.
I mean, it made me yawn a lot. It was one of those, like I say, it ran its course I'd say quite quickly after the second segment. I think because I really liked the first segment. I remember I was quite invested in it. I was watching it and I watched it first time. It was the first time was this morning at like 6 in the morning. I woke up and I had my breakfast and I was there like a little kid eating his cereal, watching Melody Time. I was like, this is great, and I was really invested in the first segment. I was like, this is really cool, and the music was wicked. And then the second segment again. Obviously, we'll go through segment by segment in a bit, obviously, but like second segment again. It was when it then came on to the third segment, I sort of started drifting out, and it was kind of like, this is cool, but it's kind of like, remember how last week I said, obviously with these anthology films, it becomes harder and harder to say things without repeating yourself because they're all anthology films, they're all this. And that's what the movie became. It became very like, okay, cool, but you know what I mean? I'm trailing off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, the film itself was mildly successful. That's a quote from Wikipedia. It's mildly successful. It says the budget was 1.5 million, and box office in terms of worldwide rentals is 2.56 million. So I don't know if the numbers are difficult to track, but it made a profit, I guess. And bearing in mind, this was literally just Disney spinning his wheels to make money. Recouping the loss of some of the feature films that had come out before. Pinocchio wasn't a massive success because of the war. Neither was Fantasia. Dumbo probably like mild. Bambi probably didn't do as well. And then they've had all of these anthology films, and by this point, yeah, the war's over, but they're still just trying to get that money together so that they can get back to animated feature films again, based on a solo story, which 2 years after this, we'd obviously get that with Cinderella 2, massive, huge success, which I'm really looking forward to watching again. So 2 weeks' time, it's going to be a really, really good one. But this one, because I'm kind of the same with you, and it was sort of around the third segment where I started drifting a little bit. On reflection, I actually think the Legend of Johnny Appleseed is probably one of the best ones in the film. But I think why I have more of a problem with this one than I do, say, for example, Fantasia or Make My Music, is that this one as a concept feels a little bit less focused. Fantasia goes in where you've got the guy narrating it and you've got the orchestra. It's like, right, we are putting orchestral pieces to animation. We are recreating in a visual standpoint what you hear from all this. This is our artists and Disney's interpretation of all of these pieces of music. And you run with that, and he introduces each piece of music and what the story is, and then you are just watching pure animation with that music behind it, and it's great. And obviously Fantasia's probably one of, in terms of animation, is one of Walt Disney Studios' best films. And then you get to Make My Music, and it's kind of a similar concept to that, but it does away with all of the live action voiceover and stuff like that. You are literally just watching pieces of music with story, and some of them have voices and things like that, but it felt a lot more cohesive as a film and as an idea. This one, you've got some really, really short ones where there's no voiceover and it's just music, similar to Fantasia. Then you've got one that's like got dialogue all over it. Then you'll cut to a live action segment with real people. Then we'll cut to like a really, really long, almost, like what was the name? Bongo the bear. What was the bear called in Fun and
Bongo.
Fancy Free? Bongo. That was it. Sort of like a length of one of those animated segment. That runs for about, I don't know, 20 odd minutes.
I think that was one of the weirdest parts for me, was the length, how they were all very, very different. Obviously, you're going to have different lengths in different ones, like in Melodies. Again, I'm doing the same thing you did. Like in Make My Music, when you had, obviously, with Casey, that was one of the longer ones.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, like, significant in comparison to a lot. It wasn't like you had a 2-minute one, then a 10-minute one, then a 30-second one, then this. Whereas this, yeah, it's very up and down, doesn't really know what it wants to do.
I think they saved the longest segment for last, didn't they? The finale was definitely the longest segment. The whale who wanted to sing at the Met, I think, is the longest one in Make My Music, if I remember rightly.
Oh, right, I was going to say, I was like, hang on, you're talking about a different movie, but yeah. I thought you meant in this one.
No. In that movie, so...
Yeah, it was that bit longer, yeah.
You did have, like, ones of various lengths, but they were all kind of around, like, the same
Yeah.
ballpark, or at least they felt like that. Maybe that's just a question of pacing then, in terms of the actual segment. But they kind of saved the biggest one for last, and I feel like they do that in a similar way with this one, with Pecos Bill, which is the longest segment by far. But you've got all of that live action stuff in there as well, where it's like the campfire story and the framing device for the story. But then you've also got the Legend of Johnny Appleseed, which 3 segments in is a really long one. It's the second longest one. I think Pecos Bill is over 20 minutes. I think it's like 22 minutes or something. And Johnny Appleseed isn't far behind it at like between 17 to 19 minutes, I think. But we'll go through them. So I think that's probably why I didn't love this one as much. There are still some segments that I really enjoy and some aspects of the segments that I really enjoy. And overall, I still don't like hate it or anything like that, but it just didn't gel together for me as well as the previous 2 films mentioned, Make Mine Music and certainly Fantasia. Let's dive into this thing then. So the first segment we've got is Once Upon a Winter Time. This is the Mansley segment, and it features Francis Langford singing, and it's based on like a 2 lovers on a romantic December day. What did you think to this one then? So I guess we could talk about like the art style and the actual story itself, the music.
See, I liked it. I remember watching the art style, and I really liked the animation on it. I thought it was really, really good. As a story, it was cool. I was a bit confused at first. I don't know why. I think I found just little bits going, so what's happening here? And then I said to myself, stop overthinking it. It's a cartoon with a rabbit in it. Like, just chill. But the music is what drew me to it. I really enjoyed the music of it, which pretty much the same with a lot of them. But that one, yeah, I really like the music. That's one of the ones where I was, like I say, I was really invested with. I just like watching it. I think it was a fun, enjoyable. Especially, it was a really good start to the movie. If any were going to start it, that's the one to start it. Like, they chose well.
Yeah, and I mean, there's sort of like non-speaking human characters, aren't they? Which in 2 segments' time we'll get a lot of talking human characters in the Johnny Appleseed one, and obviously later on as well with the Pecos Bill one. But yeah, this was an interesting one. I didn't love it, I guess. What I really did appreciate about it though was the art style itself. It was felt quite minimalistic, especially when you see the horses pulling the sleigh at the beginning. It reminded me of there is probably an artist who's most notable for this style, but it reminded me of looking at old Christmas cards, and I swear I've seen Christmas cards done in that kind of similar art style, where it's not as detailed, the animals don't look as realistic, and it's kind of, you know, when we get to Sleeping Beauty, and it's kind of like a medieval tapestry kind of style, similar to that. Not saying this is like medieval, but I've seen old style Christmas cards and Hallmark cards that are, you know, like that. So I quite liked the especially when you watch all the segments together. It's certainly, in terms of the animation style, this one definitely feels very different from all the other ones that follow it once you look at everything in hindsight. It's kind of like the slapstick one, really, isn't there? There's a moment which reminds me of Ice Age, just because I've seen Ice Age before this film, where the crack in the ice is just kind of doing this crazy thing, like Scrap the squirrel's trying to bury his acorn. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. There's
I didn't think of that comparison. That's good.
There's 2 like cute rabbit characters in there as well, I guess. It's fine. It's not a massively memorable one for me, but I do appreciate sort of like the change up of the art style in it.
It was released on its own as well.
Yeah, a lot of these segments were in various cassettes and Disney Channel.
But this was theatrically released on its own in 1957.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah,
I think
1954. 1954.
That's it. In September 17th, that was it. I knew there was a 7 involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed that one.
The next segment is actually. See, I've read some reviews saying that this next segment was really forgettable, but actually this was probably one of my favourite ones. It's a really short one, and it was really cool, probably because it's one of my favourite classical pieces as well. It's called Bumble Boogie, and it's a swing jazz variation on the original Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee song. And it's this little bee, this little animated bee, and then you've got this crazy, frenetic, surreal musical notes coming to like attack him, and he's trying to evade everything. There's a bit where sort of like musical notes form a cage around him, and he's pulling on the bars to try and
That's cool.
get out of it. It's a really short segment, but I just loved it. And to me, this was like, so this is more of the Fantasia kind of thing. This is kind of more of the thing that I wanted it to be. Like, basically another Make Mine Music, and I would have been fine with that.
See, and Flight of the Bumblebee, guess who plays that? Not like in this, but live. Yeah. Nuno Bettencourt from Extreme plays Flight of the Bumblebee. And he's in a band with Gary Cherone, who was in Van Halen. See? There's a proper connection here.
Oh, God.
See, there's a connection in this one.
He killed me. For anyone who doesn't know, or anyone who's just tuned in, because we've got 2 viewers apparently, so hi viewers at home. Please do comment if you've seen this movie or any Disney films that you like. Dale started this thing from video 1. Which doesn't surprise me at all. And then this continued into video 2, into video 3. And by video 10 now, we've had a Van Halen reference in every single video. And this is a tradition that you need to keep up for another at least
54 movies?
48 weeks or so.
48? I thought it was like more than that.
Actually, yeah, there probably is now. Because I haven't bought the other ones. Yeah, for like
it goes up to like 60. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of weeks. So
another year.
It's gonna be great.
By that point, there will be another one out anyway.
Oh, it's gonna be a constant stream. We're gonna be like bailing water out the side of a sinking rowboat. That's gonna be the equivalent of this retrospective. It's never gonna stop. But yeah, I quite like this one. But Bumble Boogie, I thought it was pretty cool. It's like
it's light. I was gonna say lighty. What's the word? Neon. It's got that neon-y kind of. I think that was the really cool. My favorite bit was obviously him trying to get out of the cage when they obviously surround him. I thought it was done really, really well. But it is also an example of when we said how it doesn't know what it wants to be. There's a couple of shorter, longer, but it's really good. It's just then you coming from the first one, which is, I don't know exactly how long it is, but it's significantly longer. Because I remember watching this and it ended and I was like, oh, is that it?
Yeah,
but it was short and sweet and it was good.
Yeah, and I love the timing of some of the aspects as well, like the clashing of certain things, and you had the animation synced in perfect time, perfect synchronicity with the music itself, basically like Fantasia. And speaking of Fantasia, this apparently was one of the pieces that was originally considered for that movie, which could have been very interesting. So it almost feels like a carryover from that film a little bit.
There's a lot of that. When we go through these, there's a lot of it could have been in Fantasia, but it wasn't.
Yeah, in Make Mine Music, you had the what was it? It was like a crane, wasn't it, flying in not Blue Lagoon. What was it called? Was it Blue? Not Blue Bayou. What's it? I can't remember. Do you remember
the one that was your favorite?
That was one of my favorites in terms of the animation, but originally it was going to be put to Claire de Lune, wasn't it?
It's really weird because, like I say, there's a lot of these. It feels like some weird Family Guy sketch. You get them all sitting in a room and someone going, I could have been in Fantasia. And then they all go, yeah, we all could have been in Fantasia.
Yeah, Blue Bayou, that was it. It was the second segment from Make Mine Music. They probably just had like a lot of these things on the cutting room floor, I expect, or maybe some rough ideas or concepts. The next one then, so the third segment, which is also the second longest one in the whole film. You've got The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, which is a retelling of the frontiersman in Midwestern United States, based on the life of John Chapman, who in the pioneer days planted a whole bunch of apple trees, and I think he spread Christianity around back in the day. I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know if he's it's almost like a patron saint kind of character, I guess.
He had one of those big guns, the things with the big hole. You know what I mean? The guns that they go longer, like a trumpet.
What the guns that every cartoon character had back in the day, like Elmer Fudd's gun.
Yeah, but you've always considered whether they are actually real or not, because I don't know, because I've never seen one.
Yeah, they kind of look like a gramophone horn.
Exactly. They're not real, are they? They don't actually exist, or do they?
No, they would have existed. Yeah, hang on. I've got.
I wasn't sure if it was just a cartoon thing.
I don't want to say it in case it's the wrong name for the gun. Yeah, see, I was going to say musket. It's not a musket. Hang on. Gun with... It's I don't know. Like,
Gramophone gun.
let me find it. It's
Like
not. It's kind of like it's not this, but a blunderbuss has a similar kind of. That's a much like shorter gun, but a blunderbuss has that kind of like trumpeted end a little bit. I don't know. Any Americans watching who know your guns? Can you tell us what we're
I think
talking
a lot of them do. Then again, when they go past high school age, they forget. Anyway,
Holy shit. Is this video going to get flagged? I don't care. That was great. Yeah, so this one is like a full-blown story. You've got narration, you've got voiceover. One thing that I did notice about this, and maybe this is me blowing things out of proportion a little bit, because then I guess, you know, we cast our mind back to stuff like Pinocchio and Snow White and things like that. But the animation on the humans and the animals specifically in this segment seemed almost like a precursor of what we're going to have going forward with a lot of the Disney characters. And I've never felt that from like Fun and Fancy Free or any of the previous anthology films that we've had. Maybe just because there haven't been like loads of human characters in them. We've had a few in Make Mine Music, but there was something about the animation style in this one where I was like, oh, okay, so I'm seeing things in the animation now where I'm probably going to see this going forward to things like Black Cauldron and, you know, some of more of the things like that, I guess, or Sword in the Stone or something. That was probably
I
just
saw it with the animals.
but something hit different about this animated segment, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I saw it with the animals. I especially saw it with the dog. But what did I see it? Because I saw the dog and I saw a character, but I can't put my finger on it. Like, it's not like the skunk and you go, oh, that's Flower or anything like that. It's like the dog just reminded me of something. I don't know who. I don't know if there's a specific dog, but that especially was one. I saw it a lot with the animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I quite like this one. When it first started, the length of the segment was starting to get to me a little bit, but by the time the whole thing was said and done, it was like a really nice story. It was a story that I kind of got pulled into this story about his life and what he was doing, and kind of like the folklore quality to it. I really appreciated that the final shot where he passes away of old age and his spirit kind of goes up to the heavens, and it's like you've got more work to do up in heaven. You've got more apple trees to plant, and then it's the clouds are all the apple blossoms on the trees. I thought that was a really beautiful ending shot. I don't know, I kind of really came around to this segment. I thought the animation was really smooth on the humans and the animals, and I just kind of got bought into this story. It is kind of a double-edged sword, because I think having a segment this lengthy at this point in the film does really kind of fuck with the pacing of the film a little bit and the flow of it, especially because the winter segment, that went on a little bit, but it was kind of like a normal length for something. The really tiny segment with Flight of the Bumblebee, which was almost like blink and you'll miss it, and then boom, straight into a 17-minute. I don't know.
Is it 17 minutes?
Yeah, 17 minutes, this one.
Oh.
And apparently, yeah, it's got, this segment was released independently on Christmas Day 1955. Let's just have a look. Yeah, I don't know if anything had been removed from this film, because I've seen conflicting things saying that it's either 17 minutes or 19 minutes, so I don't know if there's an edit out there where 2 minutes have been removed. I don't think it has, but yeah. Let's see. Should we move on to the? Do you have anything to say on the Johnny Appleseed one, or
Not really? It's one of those where I know you liked it and it was fine, but it's one of those where it's a proper reminder this doesn't know what it wants to be. Like you say, it goes from you know your really ridiculously short segment into this, and then into Little Toot. How long was it?
Little Toot. Let me just see. Yeah, so it's based on a 1939 book. Yeah, I can't find a runtime for this one. It doesn't mention.
But it's just one of those, like I say, it's up and down. It's a very
like
yo-yo
normal length, I'd say, Little Toot, isn't it? It's kind of
Yeah.
what you'd expect from one of these films, yeah.
But this one was wicked. I like this. I like the
I got into this one
music
too.
and
Yeah, no, I got into this one too.
it reminded me of Pedro the Plane.
Yes, yeah, I see that definitely.
Not just because he's like a type of transport, but like, but the way the characters were and that kind of how it gets a little bit dark and and he's kind, the kind of emotion in it. It really reminded me of that, and I like the music in it. I thought it was a very good segment.
Well, it's a similar kind of arc for the character, isn't it? It's this, oh, he's little, oh, he can't possibly do this great task. He's a bit of a troublemaker. He's not particularly great at what he does. And then by the end of it, he overcomes a storm of some kind, overwhelming odds, and he manages to save the day, wins his family's or his father's approval, and, he's hailed as a hero. So it's a very similar concept. I didn't actually think of that, but you're 100% right. It's basically the same thing. So it's the story of a small little tugboat in New York City, and he wants to be just like his dad, like the big two, doing all these amazing jobs and everything. Gets caught in a storm and eventually manages to drag this massive ship, way bigger than him, all the way back to the city. So it's a fun little story. I love his little victory wiggle at the end. And then he looks over his shoulder like, yeah, I did the thing. I don't know. I thought that was quite cute.
Yeah, like I say, the character was cool. It's one of those segments. It's fun. It's one that they did obviously release it on its own, but it's one you watch on its own, and it's a decent little cartoon.
Yeah.
I think as much as I like the first segment, and obviously the second segment's too short. I know you like the third one, but I think this is the first segment that properly holds up as if you watch it as a standalone, it's a nice little standalone. The others are just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like I said, the second one, as much as I love it, it's too short to just be a standalone. It makes sense in front of a Disney movie or whatever, but this, I think, is the first one. It's a good, nice little standalone, I say film, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. The next one's kind of interesting, in that I feel like I don't have much to say about it, and I feel like it's quite a forgettable one. But in terms of animation and doing things that hadn't been done before, it's quite up there. The next one is Trees. Do you remember Trees?
Yeah. Like you say, it's quite forgettable. It's fine. I had a good example of something it reminded me of, but when you have like a transition period where you're like, all right, cool, that's only there to get from A to B. It's kind of like that, where it's just there and it's like, cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it basically, it kind of shows you what the whole movie is. Very forgettable in a way of, it has its perks, like you say, the animation and everything. I'm sure you've got more to say about the animation because I like I say, I think it's very forgettable, but it's like that where it has its good perks, but essentially it's just there.
Yeah, so it's based on, well, it's recitation of the poem by Joyce Kilmer from 1913.
That's Val Kilmer's sister, isn't
it? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And it basically just shows the changing of the seasons, really. Sort of like
very Fantasia, though.
Trees,
in a way.
Yeah. I guess
it reminds me of what's the one in Fantasia with the what's the thing called? It's a circle, and it's made of stone, and people sit on it. Do you know what? I don't know how to describe it. It's in Fantasia.
Which segment?
It's when it goes from day and night. It's got this. It reminds me of that one.
Are you talking about Night on Bald Mountain with Chernobyl?
No, not that one. No, I think it's the one just before it. I'm gonna have to Google and find out. Keep talking.
I can't remember that one. It reminded me of. Is it in Three Caballeros? Where you've got like the sunset and it's quite minimalistic, and you see the silhouettes of the ships on the harbour kind of thing, where you're just kind of taking in the beauty in quite a minimalistic way, and it really gives that sense of that that seasonal change or that climate or that temperature, whatever it is. But the big thing about the animation in this, I'm just quoting off Wikipedia now, I didn't know this, it says, to preserve the look of the original story sketches, layout artist Ken O'Connor came up with the idea of using frosted cells and rendering the pastel images right onto the cell. Before being photographed, each cell was laminated in clear lacquer to protect the pastel. The result was a look that had never been seen in animation before. So it's, trying some new stuff. The Problem is, like, to me, the segment is just really forgettable because it's, it's sandwiched in between. You had like a cute little Toot right before it. You've got this one seemed to go really quick as well, Trees. I don't know if it did, but like this was almost like blink and you'll miss it and it was gone. And then the next one's like a Donald Duck one, and it's like, oh, it's like I don't know if it's just the variety of the segments in this are too random from each other, if it's something to do with the runtime of each segment, or if it's just the placing of the segments. Like, I actually wonder if you kept it the same, if you kept the content of this film the same, and rearranged a few of the sections, if it would flow a little bit better. I don't actually know how I do that.
I don't think it would, considering how many there are. I mean, it might do a little bit, like if you had short to long, like they gradually got longer. But because of how many there are, it still would feel a bit weird. Like, the thing about Final Fantasy 3 is you had just two big, long movies. Kind of, well, say long movies, you know what I mean? It was half and half, sort of.
Yeah.
Whereas this, because you've got, what is there, 6 overall? 7?
7.
But anyway, you've got
this one. Yeah.
So you've got 7 overall. And the last one long, and I think the pacing would still be a bit off.
I'd almost be inclined to open with Johnny Appleseed and have that be like your big story one out the way to begin with, then have something really short like Bumble Boogie, then maybe like Little Toot or something, so you've got like your cutesy ones, your fun ones, we're getting the energy back. Have Once Upon a Winter. You could maybe have Trees first because that's to do with the winter, and then going into that Once Upon a Winter segment because it's a bit more action packed. There's a rescue mission in there and it brings the energy back. Then you just have like Blame It on the Samba and then Pecos Bill or something. I wonder if like shuffling it around like that might work better. I actually don't know. Did you find that Fantasia one, by the way? Did you say?
I did, and I can't remember what it's called. The stone thing. It's made of stone. Thing? It's the Greek kind of looking one.
Oh, it was it was like the fresco, wasn't it? The Roman.
Yeah, what's the round thing called though?
Well, that's Mount Olympus, I think, is the big stone round
thing.
Thing.
No, not the actual mountain, but they're things that exist, and people go to them. They're like, do you know what? I really wish I could describe what it is, but I can't even Google it and go, there's the picture.
It's not a Colosseum, like...
It's like a little Colosseum. It's really small.
It's not an No, not an amphitheater. What's the...
No, even smaller. Think about like a wishing well, that size.
It was a well, wasn't it? It was where like a
font,
like where they were keeping all the wine, wasn't it?
Nah, it was like a. Do you know what? I will get it at some point, and I will. It'll probably be next week or something, but I'll find it and I'll find what they're called, and yeah. But that was in my head.
Right, if that doesn't entice the viewers in for next week, I don't know what will. So the penultimate segment then in this one is Blame It on the Samba, and we have our return of Donald Duck and Jose Carioca. And apparently, I did read this somewhere, these two wouldn't feature again on screen until Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Now, I seem to remember Donald Duck being in there, but I don't remember Jose Carioca being in that film.
I think he's in the background, at the end when they're in that warehouse or whatever.
Oh,
I think he's just because they've got loads of characters in that. I'm pretty sure he's there.
Yeah. So you've got the return of the I can never pronounce it. The Aracuan bird. He was the one who did like the funny little tune when he was first introduced back in Three Caballeros. This little guy's cropped up a few times. I actually quite like his character. And he I
wonder why they stopped using him.
Yeah, I don't know. Just maybe the popular character didn't make... Well, they kind of done everything they could with the anthology films, hadn't they, at this point? So maybe they just didn't...
He probably died of cancer. He smoked a lot.
But he introduces them to the pleasures of the Samba, and then after that, it's kind of like a holdover from Three Caballeros again, isn't it? It's like, oh, we're doing this thing again.
I would kind of like to see him in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it might be interesting. Yeah.
Donald's cousin or something. Like, I think, I think, actually, if we're talking Kingdom Hearts, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit would be better.
Oh yeah, I was just checking who was on the organ during this segment. It was Ethel Smith.
Her name is Ethel.
Ethel Smith. Yep. I mean, it was a
Go to
cool
find an
organ
Ethel.
solo. I'll say that it was cool, but this one was just really forgettable to me. I think I'm kind of over the whole Saludos Amigos Three Caballeros thing by this point, and it was just like, oh, we're doing this again. And Donald Duck really doesn't do much, as I said. Like, look at this front cover. I'm expecting to see some like wacky hijinks of Donald Duck trying to conduct a classical song and probably fucking it up and cueing the wrong musicians in, and the
Do you
whole
know
thing's
who?
going to shit.
Do you know who does do that though? Bugs Bunny.
That's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of. Yeah. I
So
remember seeing something that's similar to that, but I wanted that. I wanted Looney Tunes, damn it.
yeah.
And that would have been fun. That would have been fun, you know, because Donald always gets really irate and, you know, and goes like crazy and rageful. Like, that could have been fun.
Speaking
But
of Looney Tunes, this might help you know what I'm talking about. You know the one, the opera one
yeah,
with
what's
Elmer
opera like?
Fudd.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the one, right? And you know where Bugs Bunny pretends to be dead, and he's like holding Bugs Bunny's body. It's in this like Greek kind of tall thing that looks like a well, and they're over that, and it's what is it?
Well, it's like a font, I guess, isn't it? Like, just like it's
No,
like a wishing well type thing.
yeah, but it's not. I can see it.
Hang on. Hang on. Greek
I just
well
googled Greek well.
water. All I'm seeing is that they're called wells.
No, they're not. There's a thing, and I will find it. Come next week, we'll know what it is.
It's dude, I'm telling you, they're just called water. Like water
No,
wells.
no, they're not. There's more
Greek
to it
old
than that.
traditional Greek well. It's a
No.
thing.
I will find it by next week. It will be there. We will know exactly what it is.
It's not Hygeia? No.
Let me
Shit,
find it.
man, I don't know. I think you're making shit up, man. It's just a fucking well.
I thought way too into it.
Right, then we get on to the final segment then. There's not much really else to say on this film. Pecos
It's
Bill.
long.
So the finale follows the folklore famous hero of Texas, Pecos Bill. This is like an actual thing. It's a proper folklore story, and I love folklore. I love like legends and mythology and things like that, and cautionary tales, folk tales, and things like that. So this was something I never heard of, and it's really really cool story. This is probably my favorite segment, I would say, out of the entire film, but it's also the most frustrating because it's got like a whole bunch of the live action shit in there. You've got the little girl returns again from Fun and Fancy Free. She's the little girl at the campfire. I think the little lad in there as well. I think both he and the girl were in So Dear to My Heart, I think, which was a live action animated Disney film they did. But I love this. I thought it was really creative. I thought it was really fun, like the stuff the cowboy was doing. My favorite like segment itself of the whole thing is when he's actually creating the land, and it's just like, oh, he was stranded in the desert, so he lassoed the sea and dragged it through, and that's how you've got that river that runs through. Oh, the Lone Star, he like shot out all the stars in the sky, and you had the Lone Star, and that's why I was like, oh, okay, I like all that shit. That's really cool. There was a drought, so he lassoed the rain cloud from this state and dragged it over to here, and it was all really, really fun. So yeah, this was
It
probably my
went
favorite.
on a long time.
It did. It did. I think maybe it would have been stronger if you, because they told like the complete story, didn't they? I think the part where it has the most high energy and where I was the most invested in this segment was right before he meets the love of his life, and then they go into that story of why he howls at the moon and why the coyotes howl at the moon. When it was just him fashioning the land and founding the land, you know, basically founding Texas, I thought that was really cool. And then the pacing it loses that frantic pace, which I guess you could say is actually a pretty good thing, because, you know, narratively his whole life comes to a standstill. He meets this woman who is actually, you know, absolutely love at first sight. The two get married, and then the horse gets so jealous that it bucks her into the sky and she stays on the moon, and that's why coyotes and Pecos Bill returns the coyotes, and that's why coyotes howl at the moon for the rest of eternity. I love shit like that. I love, as I say, I love folklore and I love stories like that. I always have done. So it's fascinating for me to discover this one that I didn't know about, an American one. And I don't know, I thought there was some fun creative things in there. I like when he was almost jetpacking on the water by shooting his guns into the water. I don't know, there was some fun things. There were some fun things in this one.
It was all right. Like I say, for me, I think it just went on too long. It was one of those, and by that point as well, the movie, I might have had a different opinion if I didn't watch it right at the end of the movie that at this point already dragged on for me.
Yeah.
So possibly, but to me, it was just long. It was just there. It was done. And then by the time the movie ended, I thought, all right, cool. And yeah, it was one of those.
I get the whole thing of, I guess I can kind of see why the live action segment's in there, because it's meant to be a campfire retelling, which is, almost certainly how this story spread and how it became such a folklore legend. You've got like Roy Rogers in there, you've got people famous of the time, but it just kind of fucked with the flow every time it kept cutting back to them. I was like, no, let's just keep it to animation. The vultures attacking them as well. It reminded me of the vultures from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at the very end when the witch falls off the mountain at the end, and you've got those two vultures that are kind of stalking her. But also much later, when we get to Disney Classic number 32, the bit in The Lion King where Simba's unconscious in the middle of the desert, and then Timon and Pumbaa come and rescue him and beat up all the vultures. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, with Pecos Bill punching all the vultures away.
Do you know what? It makes me think of Family Guy. So there's back when Family Guy used to do the Conway Twitty things, where for some weird reason they would say, "Here's Conway Twitty," and it would be like a 5-minute song of just him performing for no reason whatsoever,
yeah.
like in Family Guy tradition of just let's do this because it's random. But it reminds me of that in the sense of you're like, okay, cool, but again, why are we going on this long? I remember the first time seeing it, and the thing is, I remember obviously the first time seeing those in Family Guy, I was like, why it's not relevant, and then realised obviously that's Family Guy's thing. But it just reminds me of that. Obviously, one, it's live action, two, it's one of those, it goes on just a little bit too long, I think.
Yeah. I do like how they pronounce coyotes in this, though, and I guess that's a Texan thing, maybe. It's like the damn coyotes. I always thought it was, like Wile Coyote. I thought that was the whole thing, but
that's what they all call it. Have you heard any people actually say that in real life?
Well, you don't say
that is what they call it.
Wile Coyote, do you? Like it's Wile
No,
Coyote.
That's what they all say. They all call them coyotes and stuff. It's like, hey, little coyote. Like what?
Only in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just kind of the end to it. So in the end, it's just a real mixed bag. There's aspects I like the animation and the storytelling in Legend of Johnny Appleseed, and some of the aspects of Pecos Bill I really enjoy. Bumble Boogie is quite a fun one, but all the segments to me are just so vastly disconnected, and there's nothing really gluing them together. It just kind of feels like a bit of a hodgepodge film, really. And
it's kind of like when I carved pumpkin. It was all right in its own way. It made sense. Gave it a go, but overall, I'd rather someone else did it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I'd rather watch out of the anthology ones. Make My Music definitely is the strongest.
Yeah, agreed.
So far.
Agreed. So
because Ichabod and Mr. Toad, I have very fond memories of parts of it, but not I'm going to obviously rewatch it because I watched it in many years. So who knows? That could be bad at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to going back to this one. So next week we've got classic number 11. We've got The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. I think this was going to be called Two Famous Characters, wasn't it? Originally, and then some got shuffled around. It was going to be Jack and the Beanstalk and Wind in the Willows, I think, and then things got moved around or whatever happened. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because you've got a lot of fond memories of Mr. Toad, the Mr. Toad segment in this, and I've got a lot of memories of the Ichabod segment for various reasons I'll go into next week. But I don't remember the Wind in the Willows one all that much, so it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one.
I just remember watching it quite often. I remember bits of it. It's that kind of it's very Alice in Wonderland to me in the sense of how I remember it in my head, because Alice in Wonderland is um one of those things where it's got this bit, then this bit, then this bit, then this bit, like randomness in a way. And
Episodic,
that's
yeah.
how my brain remembers it, of little bits. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Just the headless horseman chase at the end of this is a fantastic piece of animation. It's really scary as well for Disney around this. It's been a while since we've had some danger in a Disney film. So, probably I guess Bambi was the last one that really had it. So it's Disney.
It's not like we don't really have villains anymore, do we?
No, not anymore.
They're always like in Frozen. Who's the villain? Like, he's there and he exists, but he's not really
They
there.
do a villain switcheroo at the end of the film, and it just, there's no one who's just like a proper memorable Disney villain. People are still going to remember Jafar, Maleficent, Scar, characters like that.
Characters you can't remember.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of some more. The evil queen and things like that. People that are just fucking evil for being evil's sake, and it's great. And that, Captain Hook, there's just so much personality to them. No one's gonna remember the. Have you seen Zootopia, by the way?
Yes, Zootopia is great.
No one's gonna remember the little sheep lady person at the end who turns out to be the villain. No one's gonna remember.
But we will remember the sloths.
Who's the villain in Moana? It's like kind of,
which I have not seen.
Okay, I won't spoil that then. But like, I don't remember who the villain is in Big Hero 6. I don't remember the name of the villain in Frozen. Oh, you know what I mean? Or Encanto doesn't really have a villain.
Yeah,
they've kind of got away with it now. I genuinely believe like the last proper Disney villain was Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog, and he's got so much personality, and he's got a really cool look to the character. Great voice as well.
I wonder why he's not being in Kingdom Hearts, because he would be great.
That would
Just
be
him.
A fun world if they did that.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't even need the whole world. I just need him, because he is a wicked, like, even if he showed up, kind of like Maleficent did, just something, he does something cool, and with his magic, he could go to different worlds, he could do things, so I think he would be good. Like, if they don't do that, they're missing the trick.
They should do a world. You've got loads of great supporting characters. His boss battle would be really fun, and he's using magic and voodoo.
My favourite is still the what's that insect called? The thing with the butt that lights up.
Raymond.
Yeah, no, but what's the insect called again?
It's a
firefly.
Firefly, yeah.
Yeah. Why did that escape my brain?
I was going to say lightning bug. Is that what some Americans call them? Lightning bugs, or is that like a
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. They call loads of things weird things. But yeah, he's one of my favourite. He's great.
Voiced by who's the guy who does the voice of Tigger?
Is it him?
Yep.
Ooh, I don't remember the name, but
the guy who's got like 400 credits. Why am I blanking on his name?
It's not Mel Blanc.
I'm gonna find the shit out. Jim Cummings. There we go. I was going to say Alan Cummings, but that's the guy who played Nightcrawler in the X-Men films and was in Spy Kids. So next week, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. After we've done that, we are out of the anthology films. That's it. We are done. We will then be moving on to Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, as you just mentioned. I cannot wait to get to some of these films that we've got coming up in the next week.
And there are 2 Cinderellas.
Are there?
Yes. There are 2. Not Cinderella 1 and Cinderella 2, but there are 2.
Are you talking about the awful CGI one when we get to Wreck-It Ralph 2? Ralph Breaks the Internet?
No, there are 2 Cinderellas. And this includes this is just in the original 19...
Oh, are you referring to the great 80s glam band Cinderella?
I'm not referring to that awful mess that we don't talk about. But yeah, there are 2. And it just refers to the original Disney movie.
Okay, sure. Anyway, this was Melody Time. We will be back next Monday. We'll try and be on time this next week. I know we're a little bit late tonight starting, so apologies for that, guys. But thank you for tuning in.
And next week we find out what the Greek word is called. And in 2 weeks, we find out who the second Cinderella is. So there's things to look forward to.
True.